Shalom, Miss Parker. Just wanted to take the time out to address individuals across the world, the globe, or everywhere that YouTube will allow me to reach. Thank Yahweh for giving me the opportunity to present your will, your way. Today's topic is we're looking at Rabbi, what was the Harry again, and he just a particular rabbi, and he addresses the insight or the addresses the interview or the debate that he did the other day with Ronald Dalton. Peace out to Ronald Dalton, Sakari, and Pastor Kelly. We vote. Basically, all individuals that try to reach out across, the world in order to let other individuals know who we are as a people, and the truth and the lies and the great deception, the great deception. And I wasn't hitting rewind. But anyway, like I was saying, Rabbi Harry is trying to, or he addresses the particular debate that he had the other day with Ronald Dalton Jr., the author of Hebrews to Negroes. And his main thing is that, and if you saw the interview, you'll notice how Rabbi, dances around particular questions that Ronald or Mr. Dalton was trying to actually address him with, and he came up with different hypotheses and hypothetical talk that actually didn't derive to a particular answer. With that being said, thanks again for tuning in. Take time to hit the like, share, subscribe, the bell notification, and so that way you'll be able to know when I release new content. And I'm not going to keep you here long. I didn't come to preach or teach. I just came to teach. Everything that I use is fair use. I don't own the copyrights to no other particular person's video other than the one that you see down in that little box right there. Well, with that being said, he comes from a point to where he's saying that the genealogy doesn't matter. Well, if I was to address the way that he was actually taught in responses to it, I would say that genealogy means everything. How can you be born, or how can you convert to something that you are? With this particular perspective or idea or ideology of being a Jewish individual, you can convert to Judaism, but you can't convert to being an Israelite. And if the word Jewish spawns from Israelite, then technically they can be Jewish. They want to be Jewish, but we are Israelites of different nations. You got the Hebrew Israelite, Gadite Israelites, Dan, 12 tribes. It's bloodline, it's genealogy. And genealogy is the thing that persists all throughout every testament. So let's go. Let my people go.
I think that this whole scenario is going to lead to a solution. I think that this whole scenario is going to lead to a solution that will be the strategies. But we have to rewind a little before we get to it. To understand context of what is a Black Hebrew Israelite in the first place before we understand how do we answer them.
What is a Black Hebrew Israelite?
Back in a way that's not like talk to the hand and cancel them. Right. So should we do that?
Yes. We are not. Let's stop them right there. Black Hebrew Israelite. That's throwing two descriptives upon a noun, basically meaning that you taking black Israelite. No, we're Hebrew Israelites, or we're Israelites of different nations, basically the 12 tribes of Israel, like I said before. So to say a Black Hebrew Israelite is like putting an identifier on a particular individual. Where our identifier is that we're Hebrew Israelites or Shemitic Israelites. Shemitic Israelites.
Yeah. Yeah.
So should we do that now?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, and just a little bit more background, the book, especially once I the book that Kyrie Irving is promoting, you like the video, you have conversations with that author,
Many.
and you're very involved with Amari Stoudemire, like you have to be helping through the conversion process.
He has helped himself, but I was just a study partner of his
Just,
along the way.
you're very involved in the community. I don't know how to categorize Amari, I don't know how to categorize himself, but like you're not just like
You're in this space. You are in this space that a lot of people, when it comes up, is like, yeah, shut it down. Anti-Semitism, we can't hear it.
So I've been in this space because I've been debating these hateful people. Obviously, Amar's not in that camp. In this space because I've been debating these hateful people, people who are hateful. In this space because I've been debating these hateful people. In this space because I've been debating these hateful people.
The hateful people that he's addressing in a disrespectful way are Hebrew Israelites, blood descendants of the Mosaic covenant. The covenant was given to the 12 tribes of Israel. Genealogy is all through the word, the Father's word.
Obviously, Amar is not in that camp. The people who are hateful toward.
Yeah, shut it down. Anti-Semitism, we can't hear it.
So I've been in this space because I've been debating these hateful people. Obviously, Amar is not in that camp. The people who are hateful towards Jewish people. I've been debating them for many years, and I found it to be very easy to discredit their logic that they're promoting.
He says that he's been finding it easy to discredit our particular logic, which has actually been scientifically proved. Well, yeah, he's been debating us and he's been easily debunking us. But I've been seeing him personally, watching him get destroyed time after time, and especially whenever genealogy was addressed. So how have you been debunking them when you won't answer them?
But they're not really coming with logic, they're coming with emotion. With logic, they're coming with emotion. So that's where there's like easy to discredit their logic that they're promoting. But they're not really coming with logic, they're coming with emotion.
Okay, so now we're not coming with logic, like he just said. Now he changed it to emotions. Basically, I'm not am I crying right now? I don't think I'm crying, but anyway, I'm not emotional about the situation. I'm not emotional about being a Hebrew Israelite. I'm not emotional about even the lies of the deceit that individuals try to put forth. What I do, I back it up with scripture, and I back it up with documents that's been documented throughout history.
But that's where there's like a clash.
So can you explain the claims?
Yes. First, let's go just rewind, because the real elephant in the room is if you go to the government of Israel's website on their view on the lost tribes of Israel, who's from the house of Israel, rewind, because the real elephant in the room is if you go to the government. Yes. First, let's go just rewind, because the real elephant in the room is if you go to the government of Israel's website on their view on the lost tribes of Israel, who's from the house of Israel around the world, you notice one of the most common names in that report is the Igbo tribe, the Igbo tribe. The names in that report is the Igbo tribe, the Igbo tribe. The names in that report is the Igbo tribe, the Igbo tribe. And these are about 40 or so million people in Nigeria that self-identify as being.
Okay, you have the Igbo, the Limba. That's just touching on pieces of the individuals that you have to, or you're fighting to recognize as being an actual descendant or bloodline descendant of a real Israelite, not a Jewish individual, a real Israelite.
Jewish, and now they identify as being Jewish. And now there's 60 Orthodox communities in there that who've converted and are practicing Judaism, and the leader of the Igbo people ruling over them is trying to create an independent Jewish state, and the government of Israel is loving it, and it's a state, and they have a whole 60 Orthodox communities in there that who've converted and are practicing Judaism, and the leaders who've converted and are practicing Judaism, and the leader of the Igbo people, the Orthodox communities in there that who've converted and are practicing Judaism.
How can you be again converted to something that you were born into, to Judaism? So now you're telling me that you're taking being an Israelite and then placing it at, which is an ethnicity, and then placing it as a religion, and you could convert to being that religion instead of what your blood says that you are. Makes no sense. Well, it makes perfect sense.
People ruling over them is trying to, and now there's 60 Orthodox communities in there that who've converted and are practicing Judaism, and the leader of the Igbo people ruling over them is trying to create an independent Jewish state, and they have a whole Jewish revival, and it's fascinating, and the government of Israel is loving it, and they're supporting it, and Jewish people are making documentaries about it, and it's like the most exciting thing ever, and it's giving people a lot of like biblical renewal.
So just had a Lyft driver yesterday telling me about all this, and I was kind of like, all right.
This guy's pretty disrespectful, and you could he admits he's Jewish. The other guy's Jewish. Rabbis, well, of course, Rabbi, Henry or Harry, he's Jewish. And this is the particular company that you keep.
Making documentaries about it, and it's like the most exciting thing ever, and it's giving people a lot of like biblical renewal.
So just had a Lyft driver yesterday telling me about all this, and I was kind of like, all right. Don't trip, great.
So your Lyft driver was Igbo from Nigeria?
Social telling me about all this, and I was kind of like, all right. Don't trip, what you're telling me about. Great.
So your Lyft driver was Igbo from
Great.
So your Lyft driver was Igbo from Nigeria?
I'm so sure that's what he was saying to me. Yeah, all this. I'm so sure that's what he was saying to me. Yeah, all this stuff he was saying that he said Israel's been supportive.
So anytime I'm in Israel, like the Western Wall, and I see an Igbo man, I can tell that they're wearing Nigerian outfits. Like the Western Wall, and I see an Igbo man, I can tell that they're wearing Nigerian. Like the Western Wall, and I see an Igbo man, I can tell that they're wearing Nigerian outfits. I say, are you Jewish? He's like, yeah. How do you know? And I'm like, oh, bring it in.
No, that's what he said to me. He picked me up at a Jewish community center. He goes, "Are you Jewish?" Yeah. He goes, "Are you Jewish?" Yeah. "Are you Jewish?" Yeah. He goes, this is Hasha worship, or this is what is this place? This is Hasha worship, or this is Hasha worship, or this is what is this place? And I told
Straight
this is Hasha
disrespect.
worship, or this is what is this place? And I told him to Jason, it's like it's a community center. They do events. It's about building community. They take people from all races. I said, yeah. He's like, I am from Nigeria. Igbo. He didn't say Nigeria. And when I said Nigerian, he said, not Nigeria, Igbo. Not Nigerian. Not Nigerian. I am Igbo. I am not Nigerian. I am Igbo. I am Jew. I am Jew, and we're trying to do what Israel did. They're supporting us, and they're going this whole thing.
Yes, because Nigeria is just a name that the British threw onto the amalgamation of because Nigeria is just a name that the British threw onto the amalgamation of the
Watch what he says. Watch what he says.
British threw onto the amalgamation of a bunch of different tribes there that destabilized the region and led to a genocide and a Holocaust of the Igbo people. Of a bunch of different tribes there that destabilized the region and led to a genocide and a Holocaust of the Igbo people.
I am Jew. I am Jew, and we're trying to do what Israel did. They're supporting us, and he started going on this whole thing.
Yes, because Nigeria is just a name that the British threw onto the amalgamation of a bunch of different tribes there that destabilized the region and led to a genocide and a Holocaust of the Igbo people. Where the 1960s, millions of them were systematically killed and murdered.
Yeah, he told me about that too. That was like running late.
Systematically killed and murdered.
Yeah,
systematically killed and murdered.
Yeah, he told me about that too. That was like running late.
And so it's like, systematically kill and murder.
Yeah, he told me about that too, but I was like running away from it.
And so systematically kill and murder.
Yeah, he told me about that too, but I was like running away from it.
And so it's like, so this is so relevant because we have such a never again
I guess they follow the Talmud.
Holocaust thing, but like these people had it. But what is mind-boggling to me, which I can't imagine why this is not in the news and not spoken about, is that like a large chunk more. This is not in the news and not spoken about. Is that like a large chunk, more than a fourth of the transatlantic slave trade came specifically from this one tribe. So how are we not starting to connect dots and being like, wait a minute? So the tribe in Africa that the government of Israel is fascinated with, and enamored by. So how are we not starting to connect dots and being like, so how are we not starting to connect dots and being like, wait a minute? So the how are we not starting to connect dots and being like, wait a minute? So the how are we not starting to connect dots and being like, wait a minute? So the tribe in Africa that the government of Israel is fascinated with, and the government of Israel is fascinated with, and how are we not starting to connect dots and being like, wait a minute? So the tribe in Africa that the government of Israel is fascinated with and enamored by is now the blood of those people flowing through the African American community here. Now the blood of those people flowing through the African American community here, which would make sense to me why they're all being like flowing through the African American community here, which would make sense to me why they're all being like we have, enamored by, is now the blood of those people flowing through the African American community here, which would make sense to me why they're all being like we have an Israelite affinity where here, which would make sense to me why they're all being like we have an Israelite affinity where we're identifying this is us, we are this Israelite affinity where we're identifying this is us, we are this, and so I'm like came specifically from this one tribe. So how are we not starting to connect dots and being like, wait a minute? So the tribe in Africa that the government of Israel is fascinated with and enamored by is now the blood of those people flowing through the African American community here, which would make sense to me why they're all being like, we have an Israelite affinity where we're identifying this is us, we are this, and so I'm like, so yeah, if the DNA of the blood of these people are in them, they have a. If the DNA of the blood of these people are in them, or if the DNA of the blood of these people, or if the DNA of the blood of these people are in them, they have a valid claim to feel and say that. Where it goes, if the DNA of the blood of these people are in them, they have a valid claim to feel and say that. Where it goes wrong then is where spiritual bullies come and hijack that reality into forming cults. Or if the DNA of the blood of these people are in them, they have a valid claim to feel and say that. Where it goes wrong then is where spiritual bullies come and hijack that.
Spiritual bullies come and hijack that understanding, that belief, to where they controlled it and they tried to hide it, and then they hijacked slavery.
Reality into form.
Not created slavery, they imposed slavery on a certain group of people.
Forming cults that create hate, and etc. So those are the people I battle. I'm not battling the reality that you could be from the house of Israel, because I'm not battling the reality that you could be from the house of Israel. Like I said, the bottle shattered and glass. I'm not battling the reality that you could be from the house of Israel, because like I said, the bottle shattered and glass went around the whole world. I'm not battling the reality that you could be from the house of Israel, because like I said, the bottle shattered and glass went around the whole world. I'm battling the bullies that are standing in between you and your inheritance, which is the Torah. Like I said, the bottle shattered and the glass went around the whole world. I'm battling the bullies that are standing in between you and your inheritance, which is the Torah.
So our inheritance is just the Torah. We have reparations couldn't pay us for what they took from us. The lands all through northwestern Africa, eastern Africa, Israel. Oh, come on, man. Our inheritance is not just the land. I mean, not just the Torah. The Torah is ours. You are so right. So how can we convert to anything?
If you really are from the house of Israel, come back towards the Torah. It's that reality.
We are of the Torah.
That create hate, and etc. So those are the people I bet.
We are of the Torah. The Torah was given to us as a bloodline.
into forming cults that create hate, and etc. So those are the people I battle. I'm not battling the reality that you could be from the house of Israel. Because, like I said, the bottle shattered, the last one around the whole world. I'm battling the bullies that are standing between you and your inheritance, which is the Torah. Because if you really are from the house of Israel, come back towards the Torah. It's perfectly been preserved throughout the exile, which is what house of Israel. Come back towards the Torah. It's perfectly been preserved throughout the exile. The world. I'm battling the bullies that are standing in between you and your inheritance, which is the Torah. Because if you really are from the house of Israel, come back towards the Torah. It's perfectly been preserved throughout the exile, which is what the guys like Amari Stoudemire did, because he grew up knowing he was from the people of Israel from his mother. His identity. Is he a Igbo? Is he some trace like that? No, we didn't do DNA. It's not about that because I'm just curious what his Igbo is. He trace like that? No, we didn't do DNA. It's not about Igbo. Is he trace like that? No, we didn't do DNA. It's not about that because Igbo. Is he trace like that? No, we didn't do DNA. It's not about that because.
Again, he stays away from DNA because DNA, the genealogy is everything. That means if we're the Torah is of us, then how can we convert to Judaism? You would have to convert to being an Israelite.
I'm just curious what his path was to sure. Igbo, is he trace like that? No, we didn't do DNA. It's not about that because I'm just curious what his path was to I'm sure it'd be interesting to test, but that blood is flowing throughout the whole West. I'm sure it'd be interesting to test, but that blood is flowing. I'm sure it'd be interesting to test, but that blood is. I'm sure it'd be interesting to test, but that blood is flowing throughout the whole Western Africa and into the diaspora here into America. And when guys like Amare looked into it. They looked into it and saw the Torah. I'm sure it'd be interesting to test, but that blood is flowing throughout the whole Western Africa and into the I'm sure it'd be interesting to test, but that blood is flowing throughout the whole Western Africa and into the diaspora here into America. I'm sure it'd be interesting to test, but that blood is flowing throughout the whole Western Africa and into the diaspora here into America. And when guys like Amar, Western Africa and into the diaspora here into America, and Western Africa and into the diaspora here into America. Eastern Africa and into the diaspora here into America. And when guys like Amare looked into it and he saw the Torah and realized that it wasn't coming from me, I wasn't middlemaning. The Torah's right here. It's from 3,000 years ago.
And it's told
so
you, it's telling you.
He went for what his ancestors had. He wasn't going for something that came from Europe or came from a human alive today. He was going for the real thing. And so there's intellectual bullies today preventing the emergence of this Hebrew Israelite momentum. Bullies today preventing the emergence of this Hebrew Israel. And
the bullies that he's addressing are the hierarchy, I think the ADL or something like that, but the hierarchy of that controls the Jewish religion.
Like momentum, and that's the documentary. And so today, he was going for the real thing. And so there's intellectual bullies today preventing the emergence of this Hebrew Israelite momentum, and that's the documentary that I believe was made that Kyrie posted was by one of it's the documentary that I believe was made came from Europe or came from a human alive today. He was going for the real thing. And so there's intellectual bullies today preventing the emergence of this Hebrew Israelite momentum, and that's the documentary that I believe was made that Kyrie posted was by one of these individuals who spun up something that's not real.
One of the documentaries that was made that prompted Kyrie Irving, Kanye, Ye probably seen it too. No disrespect, Ye, much love. But anyway, so basically, documentaries that actually point and stipulate the facts of who we are, Hebrews to Negroes. It's other documentaries that are out there. I've seen hundreds of them, just being honest. I've seen a lot of them, and that's Hebrews to Negroes is not the only documentary that's out there. Do your research, get educated, understand what's going on, understand what's going on with the Father and the Father's word and the wicked system that we're in.
Get people what was the false view? Made that Kyrie posted was by one of these individuals who spun up something that's not real to get people all. What was the false view?
How did the hell we get people?
So this they're making Polsky, spun up something that's not real to get people all. What was the false?
See the wink?
Something that's not real to get people all. What was the false?
Watch the wink.
Something that's not real to get people all. What was the false?
How are they getting these people? So
Because they're making documentaries like this, which make really good arguments that I don't. Which make really good arguments. They're making documentaries like this, which make really good arguments that I don't believe.
See, that is other documents that are out there that we're putting together and other nations have put together. But like I said, it's just a collection of documents that's been written over thousands of years, hundreds and thousands of years of the proof of what we present on a regular.
Are logical, but because they're making documentaries like this, which make really good arguments that I don't believe are logical, but are getting people's emotions, which make really good arguments that I don't believe are logical, but are getting people's emotions.
Okay, so it's not. He don't think that DNA is logical and it's rousing people's emotions. Yeah, because we're saying we're putting forth so much proof of what we're saying, and what the Father's word has said, told us that, and we just can't see how a person or individual could be that ignorant to where you don't just face the facts, Jack.
and to distract them from saying like, well, if you're interested in it,
That I don't believe are logical, but are getting people's emotions.
and to distract them from saying like, well, if you're interested in it,
To create his own for this guy. He wants to be a king and a prophet. He's like,
well, if you're interested in it,
to create his own power. This guy. He wants to be a king and a prophet. He's like, I'll create his own power. This guy.
What's the motivation?
He wants to be a king and a prophet. He's like, he wants to be a king and a prophet. He's like, he wants to be a king and a prophet. He's like,
I follow Ronald. Well, I've subscribed to his channel, and like I said before, he's one of my, brothers of great insight. If I could debunk anything that he says or didn't believe anything that he said, I wouldn't follow him, or I probably would have been saying something. But the fact is that I've never heard him prophesy anything. I've never seen. To me, he doesn't strike me as an individual that's coming like he's like all divine. He knows the scripture, yeah. He's familiar with genial haplotype groups, yeah. He's well educated in the information that he's addressing or that he presents. I've never heard him say anything to say that he's a prophet.
What the man create his own power. What's the motivation? He wants to be a king and a prophet. He's like,
What are the false claims? Let's just put them out there. What's the debate?
He wants to be a king and a prophet. He's like,
what are the false claims? Let's just put them out. False claims. Let's just put them out. False claims. Let's just put them out there. What's the debate?
First of all, there's a few.
What's the false claims? He says is a few.
And we'll go through what I think are just the two main.
What are the false claims? Let's just put them out there. What's the debate?
First of all, there's a few, and we'll go through what I think are just the two main ones for now. We can go in later. One is that there's a prophecy in the Torah in Deuteronomy that says, I will bring you as slaves again on ships to a land not your own. And one is that there's a prophecy in the Torah in Deuteronomy that says, I will bring you as slaves again on ships to a land not your
True.
own. And you'll be in exile for 400 years.
True.
Right? So they say, as slaves again on ships to a land not your own. And you'll be in exile for 400 years. Right? So they say the people who came on the ships are saying, we fulfilled this prophecy. Yeah, we're from the house of Israel. We were slaves on ships. And the slavery, there was like a 400-year anniversary that came like a couple years ago. And they're like, now the time is up, we're over. Like, now we're becoming a nation again. So that's their thing. So they say, we've seen a lot of the comments, oh, those people, those Jews, those white European Jews, they don't fit the description of the curses. So this is context. Jews, they don't fit the description of the curses. So this is context. that we're becoming a nation again. So that's their thing. So they say, we've seen a lot of the comments, oh, those people, those Jews, those white European Jews, they don't fit the description of the curses. So this is context where they mean,
which theoretically those white European Jews do not fit the description. I don't know. Maybe Alex Haley forgot to mention the Jewish people that was in slavery. He just mentioned the Negroes.
when they say that. And so they're saying that we're becoming a nation again. So that's their thing. So they say, we've seen a lot of the comments, oh, those people, those Jews, those white European Jews, they don't fit the description of a lot of the comments. Oh, those people, those Jews, those white European Jews, they don't fit the description of the curses. So this is context what they mean when they say that. And so they're saying because you don't fit the curses, you can't be from the house of Israel when they say that. And so they're saying because you don't fit the curses, you can't be from the house of Israel. So then I say back,
No, we saying that what race or nation of people did the curses play out on? To say that you are Israel, you are the chosen people. I am, or he is the one that sanctify us because we honor the Sabbaths and we keeping it, and it's something natural and spiritual to us, you know, or it's something natural to us. So it's not a big thing to keep the law, statutes, and commandments. It's sort of like secondhand nature. So if you're looking at the aspect of who we are as a people,
then I'm like, wait, so
then you can be Jewish. You could convert, but we can't convert to something of who we are born ethnicity into.
only if you were on a slave ship are you being from the house of Israel. And they're like, yeah. So I'm like, so what about the Igbo tribe back in Africa where you came? About the Igbo tribe back in Africa. So then I say back to them, like, wait, so only if you were on a slave ship are you being from the house of Israel? And they're like, yeah. So I'm like, so what about the Igbo tribe back in Africa where you came from, who are saying they're from the house of Israel? Are they not from the house of Israel? So that question just like already just what's the response?
Okay, a response to that, not to the fact, yeah, we're not saying that just because you haven't been on slave ships that you're the children of Israel. No, it's when, listen carefully, when everything was destroyed, Judea lost their land, the southern kingdom lost their land. From the northern kingdom of Israel to the southern kingdom of Israel, which was Judea, you had Israel up top, Judea at the bottom. So therefore, when the Assyrians came in and they took the northern kingdom off into captivity and they restarted to repopulate the northern kingdom, Israel's land, Judea, or the bloodline of Judeans of Judah, they still were there. They like 400 years, 400 years after the fact. King Nebuchadnezzar rushed in and then sacked Jerusalem, took over the southern kingdom. Judah was destroyed by Babylon. All right, well, rushed, invaded by Babylon under King Nebuchadnezzar. So once King Nebuchadnezzar got control of that particular area, Jews were dispersed, or the Judeans were dispersed to Spain, Portugal, and they also fled into the northern regions of Africa. They fled it south into the northern regions of Africa, and some of them went as far as the water, while some settled along the way, all the way through Africa. Now, then you also had when Assyria attacked the northern kingdom in Israel, the other tribes, they rushed down and ran through Judah and ran into northern Africa. So they were already there for like 400 years before Judah got there. So then now Judah has been sacked by Rome, and all now Rome comes into play, and King Nebuchadnezzar had control at one particular time, and now you have the particular Jews that are the Judeans, the bloodline of David that was scattered into the Spain, and you have then what created Yahya Negro, Yahya Negro and the bloodline of King David, and also individual, the direct descendants of King David, along with, it may sound like I'm emotional, but I'm not. But you have the bloodline descendants of King David, along with other descendants of the house of Judah, pertain living inside of Portugal and Spain. And then the Spanish individuals didn't need the particular Judeans or the House of Israel there, Judeans, Yaya Negro there in Spain, because no more wars were kicking off against the Moors, which were kind of like their brothers, but in a sense not, but that's a different video. All right, so now the Spaniards and then you have the didn't want them anymore. So then they started to expel them. And out of the particular areas of Spain and Portugal, they kicked them out, and then they started pushing them all along the borders of the Iberian Peninsula and over into northern, eastern, northern western Africa, like I said, as far as the waters, and people were already settled in those particular areas. So then when the transatlantic slave trade started to kick, you guys were moving in on particular areas of Jerusalem because you knew that the land was already taken away from the real people that the land belonged to. Then you tried to occupy their land. Then you also took their identity and took their faith, or took who they was as a nation of people, the chosen people, the Yah's bloodline, and then you tried to claim one of the 12 tribes, Judea, Judah, Jewish. You're not you're not bloodline descendants. You are the true converts. We are the real Israelites. You have you have something that's synthetic versus something that is original, something that is an antique, something that is the truth. Sorry for the rant.
What are you gonna say?
Oh, and just to hit it, so technically, we're not saying that if you not haven't been on the slave ships, then you're not of the bloodline of Israel, or you're not one of the 12 tribes of Israel. Well, yeah, but still, I'm saying that to say that if our ancestors have scattered all through Africa, so we're all throughout Africa as well. We mixed with Hamites. That's been known throughout biblical, the Father's word, that we mixed with Hamites along with other nations, but we're still heavily and settled all throughout the northwestern regions of Africa, all because we were running from persecution. And no, you can't debunk that. Some of our people, they did land and are in Africa, along with the majority, a heavy percentage of Hebrew Israelites. Those people were captured and entered or tricked or manipulated somehow to joining the Christian religion. And then most definitely, if you didn't want them around, period. So once they started to expel them from these different places, you put all of the people into slavery, basically. I mean, it's just like, and then try to take the identity. So therefore, bloodline is everything. You can't convert into something you were born into.
This proves the whole logic of the exclusivity of the curse.
Right.
And just like already,
What's the response?
I didn't just look like that.
Just disprove the whole logic of the exclusivity of the curse.
Right.
And once you can disprove it with the people still who never went on ships, then it's the greater exile of the nation scattered around. Asian, Japanese, Indian, you were not Asian, Japanese, Indian of the nation scattered around four corners of the world.
Based on race, they're saying that because those people who are white were not on the ships, therefore they're not part of this prophecy.
Asian, Japanese, Indian, you weren't on a ship, you're not part of the prophecy.
based on race, they're saying that because those people who are white were not on the ships, therefore they're not part of this.
Asian, Japanese, Indian, you weren't on a ship, you're not part of the prophecy.
All our people didn't fall victim to slavery. They fled to other countries. That's what we say.
It was like the one thing they claim.
Israelites never put on ships and put in.
There actually are stories of Israelites being sold on ships.
It's never put on ships.
Asian, Japanese, Indian, you weren't on a ship, you're not part of the prophecy. That was like the one thing they claim.
Israelites never put on ships and put in.
His question is, were Israelites ever put on ships?
There actually are stories of Israelites being sold on ships.
It's never put on ships and put in.
There actually are stories of Israelites being sold on ships. In the Mediterranean, into Rome, into Egypt. So
slavery as a whole, as an institution, human institution.
In the Mediterranean, into Rome, into Egypt. So
slavery as a whole, as an institution, human institution. Was the standard.
Yeah, but we're not here to decipher prophecy. We don't believe
slavery as a whole, as an institution, human institution, was the standard.
Yeah, but we're not here to decipher prophecy. We don't believe that's appropriate. And so we'll see what happens in the future, perhaps.
Okay, so they stay they stay away from DNA, and they stay away from prophecy. What are you going by? Just with the Talmud? What are you going by, really?
Perhaps they did fulfill the prophecy. Perhaps they did. It's an irrelevant point to the fact that we know fulfill the prophecy. Perhaps they did. It's an irrelevant point to fulfill the prophecy. Perhaps they did. It's an irrelevant point to the fact that we know.
If it's irrelevant to what?
They came from people who were practicing Torah. So we know they came from people who were from the house of Israel. We're now practicing Torah. So
wow! So the fact that we know that they're people of Israel and they've come in and they starting to practice Torah. So y'all always knew who we were.
The one thing which was just like the exclusivity thing's over because they were just discrediting the people who came from. It wouldn't make any sense. We share the same DNA. The second thing was, especially in this Hebrews to Hebrews documentary, which I've been battling him for many years, these guys. It's not Hebrews to Negroes. It's now like the best. Hebrews to Negroes. It's now Hebrews to Negroes. It's now Hebrews to Negroes. It's now like the best-selling thing on Amazon. They said. It's a documentary also.
And that's the thing that Kyrie Irving recently promoted.
He promoted it.
And that's the thing that Kyrie Irving recently promoted. And that's the thing that Kyrie Irving recently promoted.
He promoted it. Yeah. So you can see me and him on YouTube, where I'm like trying to very clearly just like tell him like this. And then, but he's trying to disprove me with like, well, what color was these people? I'm like, your questions are so irrelevant. It's like I'm trying to focus on one point that discredits your whole entire thing, and you're trying to do periphery point proving over here, and you're trying to do periphery point proving.
Because color mattered, and you did never answer it. And you know that color mattered because if the people of Israel, if the children of Israel were Shemitic, then where do the Europeans come from? How are they Judah?
I'm like, your questions are so irrelevant. And then, but he's trying to disprove me with like, well, what color was these people? What color was these people? What color was these people? I'm like,
just like his friend just mock, because it wasn't a mimic. It was a mock. He mocked the African guy from Nigeria. Now look at him. I seen that interview and Ronald Dalton's hands weren't going all around it, and he was not looking like Run DMC.
And then, but he's trying to disprove me with like, well, what color was these people? I'm like, your questions are. And then, but he's trying to disprove me with like, well, what color was these people? I'm like, your questions are so irrelevant. It's like I'm trying to focus on one point that discredits your whole entire thing, and you're trying to do periphery point proving over here. The second thing, which I said, which I found to be very, elephanty in the room, was say one point that discredits your whole entire thing, and you're trying to do periphery point proving over here.
Peripheral point proving, peripheral vision, being able to see without directly looking the truth, the facts.
The second thing, which I said, which I found to be very, elephant in the room here, to say that because I was like, well, is he says that I'm like, so who are the real Jews? He says they were real Jews in the Iberian Peninsula in Spain. In 1,000 years ago, 800 years ago, these were real Jews.
The Sephardic Jews?
That's what he would say, and
Yeah.
he said that real Jews in the Iberian Peninsula in Spain. Jews. He says they were real Jews in the Iberian Peninsula in Spain. 1,000 years ago, 800 years ago, these were real.
And it's a fact. It's other people's documentation. Check out B'nai Israel. Ronald Dalton, in some of his videos, he mentions it. There's scientific documents from different universities and scientific studies and archaeological finds that prove that as well.
Jews.
The Sephardic Jews?
That's what he. Real Jews.
The Sephardic Jews?
Real Jews.
The Sephardic?
Real Jews.
The Sephardic Jews?
Real Jews. Real Jews.
The Sephardic Jews?
That's what he would say. And he said that. So I say back to him, I say, okay, so you're the descendants of these Iberian Peninsula Jews and North Africa, the Moors and all that. Did you read anything they wrote? Because they wrote things down. You have all their writing still. They actually wrote things down.
Yes, we read everything. Well, a lot of stuff that they wrote that we have access to.
50 years, and you have all their texts. And so they can't answer that. I'm like, well, if you did, you would see that there's such a reality.
Some of us have even read your documents, the Talmud.
Called conversion from the laws of, and so they can't answer that. I'm like, well, if you did, you would see that there's such a reality called conversion. I'm like, well, if you did, you would see that there's such a reality called conversion. There's such a reality called conversion from the laws of Moses. These real Jews, these real Israelites you speak of had the laws of Moses, and in it is called conversion. You speak of had the laws of Moses, and in it is called conversion. So off the bat, there's no such thing as exclusivity to a bloodline, because they're all about we are the real ones. Such thing as exclusivity to a bloodline, because they're all.
Like I said before, we believe that it is salvation is for the Gentiles as well. If you come to our way and do like you guys did, convert.
About we are the real ones. We are the bloodline. It's not about bloodline, and it wasn't about bloodline since Moses. It was about 613. It was about the truth. And it wasn't about bloodline since Moses. It was about.
It was always about genealogy, the divinic genealogy. What? So do we just ignore that the word says that? That the Torah says that?
613 is about the truth. Who's in on this truth can be part of the house of Israel. So exactly. So I said that even I wanted to humble myself. My family traces back to King David through the Vilna Gaon. Exactly. So I said to them, even like I was willing to humble myself. My family traces back to King David through the Vilna. Family traces back to King David through the. Family traces back to King David through the Vilna Gaon. But I was willing to be like, I'll settle to be a convert, and then you have to love me as your brother. I'll settle to be a convert, and then you have to love me as your brother. But you hate me, and you think I'm like a devil.
We don't hate you, and I don't think he does either. We just hate the fact that you're holding on to lies, and admitting it will bring a lot more than the truth out.
Well, this hate that they have for the white man has nothing to do with us. This was taught to them by the Europeans. This is trauma, how trauma works. When you abuse someone, the person you abuse usually will display those symptoms of abuse onto other people. So people, not to compare this to that, but people who were molested as children often statistically become molesters.
That trauma repeats itself.
Yes. And so these people were taught by white individuals to divide by race and color and were segregated. And so they see color because they were taught that. So they look at us and identify me with the slave owner because I'm the same color as the man that traumatized them. They see color because they were taught that. So they look at us and identify me with the slave owner because I'm the same color as the man that traumatized them. So they look at us and identify me with the slave owner because I'm the same color as the man that traumatized them.
Which is a
and identify me with the slave owner because I'm the same color as the man that traumatized them.
Which is a funny thing about Jews because the weird thing about anti-Semitism is you can be, maybe from the African American community, hatred towards Jews is Jews as white oppressors, and yet there's also anti-Semitism by white people who hate Jews because they're not white, and it's this strange. It's kind of what makes anti-Semitism a unique form of racism as compared to other more cleaner or clear form of racism as compared to other more cleaner or clear-cut forms of racism where it's based on your skin color because everything you're saying up until this point really, I think, demonstrates the Jewish family as to what it means to be a Jew. That it's by white people who hate Jews because they're not white. And
Hold on.
community hatred towards Jews is Jews as white oppressors, and yet there's also anti-Semitism by white people who hate Jews because they're not white. And there's also anti-Semitism by white people who hate Jews because they're not white. And it's this.
Okay, I'll just stop it right there. I mean, basically, with what Harry was saying and everything, I'm about to destroy all of that because genealogy means everything. And the reason why he's moving away from genealogy because if genealogy was unlocked on a situation, that means that for retributions, you got land to pay us, you have money to pay. You may as well just bring gold out for us and pay us in gold bricks. And most definitely, and it would also point out that the people that are in Israel right now that's running it, or that they are not the people of who they say they are. They're not the bloodline descendants of Judah. They're not. And he said, Rabbi said that he could trace his bloodline to Judah. That's a lie. Then you had the other guy, his other friend just say you had white people that didn't like white people because they weren't white people. I'll just let it play again.
Hate Jews because they're not white, as white oppressors, and yet there's also anti-Semitism by white people who hate Jews because they're not white. And if this
hate white Jews because of their not being white. They hated them because of the religion. And we're gonna go here. And I'm gonna wrap it up with this. We're gonna take a look at this right here. Live science. Surprise, Ashkenazi Jews are genetically European. So white people that didn't like Jews because they weren't white. But this just said, look at the title. Ashkenazi Jews are genetically European. Published by these people in 2013. So it's a reputable source. And then let's go and look and see what they have to say. The origin of the Ashkenazi Jews who come most recently from Europe. The origin of the Ashkenazi Jews who come most recently from Europe has largely been surrounded in mystery. But a new study suggests that at least their maternal lineage may derive largely from Europe. Their maternal lineage may derive largely from Europe. Through the finding of, though the findings may seem intuitive, it contradicts the notion that European Jews mostly descend from people who left Israel and the Middle East around 2,000 years ago. Though the findings may seem intuitive, it contradicts the notion that European Jews mostly descended from people who left Israel and the Middle East around 2,000 years ago. Instead, a substantial portion of the population originates from local Europeans who converted to Judaism. Says study co-author Martin Richards, Martin Richards, an archaeologist or an archaeogeneticist. at the University of Hartsfield or Huddersfield, England. Little is known about the history of Ashkenazi Jews. Therefore, little is known little is known about the history of Ashkenazi Jews before they were expelled from the Mediterranean and settled in what is now Poland around the 12th century. On an average, all Ashkenazi Jews are genetically as closely related to each other as fourth or fifth cousins, said Dr. Harry Oyster, a pathological pediatric and genetic professor at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine in New York, and the author of Legacy, A Genetic History of the Jewish People, Oxford University Press, in 2012. But depending on whether the lineage gets traced through maternal or paternal DNA or through the rest of the genealogy, researchers got very different answers for whether Ashkenazi originally came from European or Near East. Past research found that 50% to 80% of the DNA from the Ashkenazi Y chromosome, which is used to trace the male lineage, originated in the Near East, Richard said, that supported a story wherein Jews came from Israel and largely eschewed intermarriage when they settled in Europe. Okay, so that's saying like 80%, you could trace our DNA there. All right, but let's see what they said. but but those documents that Harry said, do we read? Let's see what those documents say. But historical documents tell a slightly different tale, based on accounts such as those of Jewish historian Flavius Joseph. By the time of the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 AD, as many as 6 million Jews were living in Rome, living in the Roman Empire. But outside Israel, mainly in Italy and Southern Europe. In contrast, only about 500,000 lived in Judea, said Oyster, who was not involved in the new study. So Oyster, he wasn't even part of that new study that was said. So basically, he's saying that, or he's helping to back up the fact historical documents slightly different. It's not saying that these people came from the Middle East. The major Jewish communities were outside of Judea. Oyster told Live Science. Now, maternal DNA. Richard and his colleagues analyzed mitochondrial DNA, which is contained in the cataplasm of the egg, and passed down only from the mother. So they could trace the blood or the DNA of the mother for more than 3,500 people throughout the Near East, the Caucasians and Europeans, including the Ashkenazis, so they can trace all of them, right? The team found that the four founders were responsible for 40% of Ashkenazi mitochondrial DNA, the mother's DNA, and that all of these founders originated in Europe. All 40% of them originated in Europe. The majority of the remaining people could be traced to other European lineages, could be traced to other European lineages. All told, more than 80% of the material lineage of Ashkenazi Jews, more than 80% of Ashkenazi Jews could be traced to Europe. 80% can be traced to Europe, with only a few lineages originating in the Near East. Virtually none came from the North Caucasus, located along the border between Europe and Asia, between the Black and Caspian Seas. The findings should thoroughly debunk one of the most questionables, but still tenacious hypothesis that most Ashkenazi Jews can trace their roots to the mysterious Khazarian kingdom, which they can't that flourished during the 9th century in the region between the Byzantine Empire and the Persian Empire. Richard and Oyster said the genetics suggest many of the founding Ashkenazi women were actually converts from local European populations. The simplest explanation was that it was mainly women to who converted and they married with men who come from the Near East, Richard said, and told life sciences. So this is a possibility. Another possibility is that Jews actively converted both men and women among local populations at this time, although research would need more detailed study of the paternal lineage to test this hypothesis. But if it's not true, I don't believe that one right there, because it was stated that the Jewish population could be traced back to fourth and fifth cousins. But most definitely with this being, all right, this is oh, that's not Scientific American.com. All right, so basically this is just going in her particular review of it. But as we see and as we read from Live Science, people and professors at different universities trace the DNA, and they're showing that up to 80% of the people that's there. Past research found that 50 to 80% of the DNA from the Ashkenazi Y chromosome, which is used to trace the male lineage, originated in the Near East. Richard says that supported a story wherein Jews came from Israel and a large thing. So basically, not right there, but that's when he said that he thought that he tried to put that, but then it was debunked by historical documents. And then it points out, once it was debunked by the historical documents, it was saying that that particular bloodline by Flavius Josephus recording it lived mostly out, those particular Jews were living in the Roman Empire, but outside Israel, mainly in Italy and Southern Europe. In contrast, only about 500,000 lived in Judea. White people. The major Jewish communities were outside Judea. So basically, when you go to this particular study that he was trying to implement, is that if you're a bloodline descendant, then therefore you are Israelite. You know who your God is, or Elohim is, or whatever. If for new people, I just put the word this for the statement for new people. But you know who your God is, and basically they're telling you, okay, so now that you found out who your God is, if you convert to being Jewish and following Jewish rules, the ordinances the written ordinances of man, basically you can convert to being a Jewish person instead of an Israelite when they spawn from us. No, thank you. I'd rather be the person of who I am. My ethnicity is Hebrew Israelite, not black Hebrew Israelite. I'm a Hebrew Native American Hebrew Israelite. With that, I'm just gonna go ahead and close out. But again, Harry's busted. Much love to you all. Thanks again for tuning in. Hit the like, share, subscribe, and most definitely the notification bell. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave me a comment or concern down in the comment box. And if I see it or when I see it, I'll address it or delete it or what have you. With that, I want to close out with again, Tawara Yahweh for giving me the opportunity to address Mishpacha, my family, across the world. Much love. I pray for you all. And Shema Yisrael, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Echad, Ve'ahavta et Yahweh Eloheicha, V'chol levacha, V'chol neshekha, V'chol mechodecha. Tawara Yahweh B'Hashem HaMashiach, Yahweh Shah, Uvein Barakata, Shelech, Ruach Kadesh. Stay blessed, stay tuned, stay prayed up. Most definitely stay one, become one, and stay one with the Father. Peace.